What's the shittiest worst thing a random stranger has done to you? I was in hospital recovering after some hardcore operations and one nurse decided to sign that she had given me my pain meds without actually doing so. After I was screaming in agony for a few hours, the other nurses worked out what she had done and told me it was so she would be able to take her break before the cafeteria closed for breakfasts. She got sacked in the end for forging controlled drug documents, etc. A basic stock take showed what she'd done. Cow. Medical malpractice lawsuit if I've ever seen one. At age 12, a full-grown woman cut in front of me in line at a theme park. When I confronted her about it, her reply was a sneer and a "you snooze, you lose." Hardly the shittiest thing a stranger has done, but it still makes me furious to think about. When she's on her deathbed, you should find her and repeat that same line to her. When I was about 16, I got a job as a waitress in a local restaurant. On my first day, I met a few of my co-workers for the first time. One of them was a girl who loudly proclaimed to the other workers that she didn't like me at all. Nothing led up to this, and she had no reason to not like me, and had actually only known me for a few minutes. The company had a policy where if you quit or failed to show up to work within the first 30 days of your employment, you would not receive any of your pay for the days you did work. This is illegal, but they had the policy nonetheless. I didn't think it would be a problem. They put me on the schedule for the next couple of days. The next day, that girl calls me and says that they didn't have anything for me right then. She was a waitress, but also helped out the managers with various other tasks, like calling employees with scheduling. I was confused, and informed her that I saw my name on the schedule, to which she replied, "Yeah, I think they took you off." I didn't go to work. A couple weeks later, I call and ask for my pay for the 2 days I did work. The manager tells me I won't be receiving my pay because I had failed to show up for work. The girl deliberately called me and told me I wasn't on the schedule so I wouldn't show up to work and would, as a result, be fired. You should have called the managers and told them exactly what happened. You would have got the job back and she would have been fired. You should have also have kicked her in the sea. In October, some freaking children tried to shoot me in my car while I was at a stop sign, shattered my windshield and front windows. The police recovered 6 shell casings and pulled 3 slugs out of my dash and passenger seat. Apparently it was some sort of gang initiation. Frick New Haven. I was at Yale for a conference and I don't think I'll ever go back. You come at the king, you best not miss. My favorite Yale bashing t-shirt. I went to New Haven and all I got was shot. When I was 7-8, a stranger threw a cup of pee on me from his car. This didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine. My friend was born with cerebral palsy. She was not in a wheelchair and she did not look like she had a handicap, but it affected her walking. We worked in a retail store and a customer came up to her and then said the rudest thing I've ever heard. She tells my friend, referring to the way that she walks, "I know you're faking it. I work with people like that and I know you're faking it." When working at my frozen yogurt shop over the summer, a guy came in with his family. Safe to say, he thought the prices were so unsatisfactory that he called me a xenophobe. He was of Spanish ethnicity, and that I charged him higher than I charge white people. All of this took place with other people in the store and his voice was clearly raised high enough for everyone to hear him. I know race comes up as an issue in society, but it is a complete butthole move to use minority status to make others feel like they are malicious human beings. I hate people like this. I once overheard a co-worker, who I thankfully no longer work with, go on a rant to another co-worker about how a certain Popeyes chicken in town was racist because they wouldn't take her coupon. They were xenophobes because, according to her, the Popeyes near the historically black college would have taken it. When I was around 11, my parents were having a party and I was attempting to stay away by playing video games in my room when this woman came in and asked who I was and why was I playing their video games because guests weren't supposed to go in that room. When I told her I was one of their sons, 3 in all, she said, "Really? I thought they only had 2 sons. I guess those are the ones they talk about." Made me feel pretty crappy. I had severe acne in high school, and one day it was particularly horrid. I was riding the bus home from school and suddenly these kids started taking pictures of me. There weren't any other seats to move to, so I just tried to hide my face by putting my hood up and looking out the window. They proceeded to throw corn nuts at the back of my head. I felt like an animal at the zoo. Dude, that sucks. Please tell me you're beautiful now. I was 6 at the time. School had just adjourned and I was waiting for the school bus to pick me up. While waiting, I noticed 2 girls, 10-11-year-old, walking out of the school gate. They happened to be twins. It also happened to be my first time seeing twins in real life, so I guess I was mildly staring. So they come up to me and ask, "What are you looking at?" But before I have time to answer, in what must have been a choreographed move, I get slapped by both of them on each cheek. I was in shock, and to this day what the frick happened. Also, closest I've been to a threesome. Each slap vector cancels the other out, so the net pain should have been 0. A couple weeks ago I was working delivering pizzas, and as I'm driving down a residential street going about 15-20 mph, there was a guy walking on the sidewalk. Out of nowhere he runs at car like he's trying to make me run him over. I swerved away and nearly ran into the curb. He just saunters off. I was so shaken by that split second of thinking I was going to hit someone that all I did was drive away in a daze. What a freaking dong. This is from a friend, and it's not that awful, but kind of strange. He'd gotten a haircut and was walking out of the place. As he goes to his car, a complete stranger looks at him and says, "Nice haircut, jerk." This story stuck with me mostly for the "what value? You're a jerk" dent. A few weeks after my father's death, a co-worker told me my dad must have done some pretty bad things, otherwise God wouldn't have given him cancer. I'd call your co-worker a piece of crap, but that's rude to pieces of crap. Not me, but a guy I used to work with. He was in an airport in Chicago, I think, and he goes to use a bathroom and he somehow ends up immediately next to a guy in a stall taking a crap. I guess his foot was a little too close to the gap and the stall neighbor takes a piece of used, crappy toilet paper and throws it on his shoe. Not just used, crappy toilet paper, but topped off with a small turd. My buddy of course is all kinds of WTF but is helpless due to his position as the guy walks out laughing. He said he was gagging as he was washing it off in the sink and some guy yelled at him for being the kind of person that just can't make it in the toilet and gives a bad name to the rest of us. TLDR. Guy puts crappy TP on my buddy's shoe in airport bathroom, and people think he missed that bad as he washes it off. Should have gotten back by throwing some over the stall. When I was around 12 I was playing in the neighborhood with a few of my friends and we were pretty much minding our own business. There was this guy early 20s and 2 kids, a girl and a boy around 6, sitting on the sidewalk about 20 meters away, and the guy called us over to them. We walk over. Keep in mind we had never seen nor spoken to them before, and as soon as we get close I can see the guy is holding something. As we stop and ask what he wants, the guy gives each of the kids a large rock and tells them to throw it at us. The little girl hits my friend with a rock a little larger than a golf ball right in his forehead, and I get hit in the side of the head with one a bit smaller. My friend ended up needing stitches and I was bleeding, but I didn't want to tell my parents, so I received medical care in my other friend's basement. That's pretty much it. The dude just laughed while we helped our crying friend get home. I wish I could say he got arrested or something, but when our friend told his parents they really didn't understand that the dude coerced them into doing it. I still remember the look on the little girl's face though. She looked completely confused. She felt bad but had 2 people she knew celebrating and laughing next to her. TLDR. Dysfunctional family pelt neighborhood kids with rocks. One-sided laughter ensues. When I was about 10 I walked past a man carrying a large rock bigger than his hand. Woke up incredibly sore head, side of face massively swollen and large rock next to me. Had to walk about 3 kilometers home thereafter. Now I never ever just walk past someone carrying anything weapon-like. When I first learned how to ride a bike, I felt amazing, like I could do anything. I got way overzealous and decided to ride my bike down a grassy hill at a park. My bike hit a rock and flipped, and I tumbled the rest of the way down the hill. That wasn't bad, until my bike landed right on top of me. I landed a few feet from the pavement, where people were jogging. Everything was hurting. I cried out for help. People ran right past me. Had to wait for the pain to die down a bit and crawl over to where my friends were. Multiple people saw me and ran right by me. So, the shittiest thing a stranger has ever done to me is completely ignore me when I was in a lot of pain and needed help. TLDR. Bike hit a rock and I tumbled down a hill and couldn't move. People walked right past me as I called for help. I was a child and still believed that people cared for one another. Flip side of this story. I was riding my bike to my aunt's house who had a pool. I was riding with a towel and it got caught in the front wheel. Commence full front flip. Almost immediately as I came to realize what happened, a mailman came to my aid and helped me up from under the bike. This is why I am always nice to mailmen. A few years back, when I was about 14, my family went out to dinner at a restaurant in town. My little brother, who must have been about 11 or 12 at the time, is autistic, and even though he functions fairly well in social situations, it's seldom that someone doesn't notice that he's different. As we're sitting through our meal, my mom notices that this woman from a few tables over has been staring at my brother. Staring, and staring, and staring. My mother is understandably sensitive to this sort of thing, and after about 20 minutes of relentless and rude gawking, my mother walked over to her table and kindly asked if she could help her with anything. This woman, a complete stranger, looked my mother straight in the eye and asked her in mock concern if she is sure my brother was suitable to be taken out in public. It wasn't until years later that I was able to fully respect my mother's ability to keep her cool, silently pay for our meal, and calmly walk the family out of the restaurant. I'm not sure that I would have been able to myself. TLDR. A stranger asked my mother if my autistic little brother was suitable to be taken out in public. I think an appropriate reply would have been along the lines of, well, if they already let in an butthole like you. My family rented a house off a guy who had taken some pretty serious shortcuts building his house. Found this out when me and some of my friends were sitting on the balcony, and the whole thing just fell off the house. Flipped over as we fell and landed on top of us. Our families got together to sue the guy, and he countersued my mum. She stupidly refused to pay rent for the last few weeks because there was a hole on the side of the house and the whole thing was unsafe. But we had no choice but to live there till we found somewhere else. Anyway, even though his shortcuts had seriously injured a number of children, he fought the case tooth and nail, and it took 8 years to get our minimal compensation. When I was a grocery bagger, an old man blatantly called me a N, then proceeded to go through a busy store, find my boss, and tell her that I threatened to kill him with a shopping cart. My boss looked at me and knew obviously it wasn't true and completely disregarded what the man said. Come to find out, he had Alzheimer's and thought it was the 60s. I can't make that up. It was the beginning of the school year and I was riding the bus to school. I was happy to be going back to school since I had a pretty bad summer. Sitting alone in my seat, I saw these girls a few seats away talking and giggling. One of them looks over at me and calls me an ugly retard and her friends just laugh back with her. That happened on my birthday. I skipped my first class to cry in the bathroom. Middle schoolers are freaking evil. Hit me in the head with a piece of iron bar. Stabbed me once in my left ribcage. I ended up smashing a lot of his teeth in on the concrete. Sucker tried to steal my wallet. Tried. Tell us the story. I'm bloodthirsty after all these unfulfilled and unsolved stories above. I was assaulted twice in a fortnight. Both situations totally unprovoked. I freaking hate alcohol. This didn't happen to me, but instead to a friend of mine. Let's call him Tim, from Brooklyn. So Tim is just driving his sedan down the street to get to the university that he teaches at like a good person. At a red light, two 20-year-olds run up and try to carjack him. Tim's from Brooklyn. Don't mess with people from Brooklyn. Tim calmly reaches into the back seat of his sedan and pulls out a 1.5 foot long lead pipe. He carries it around with him for just this sort of situation. After the two 20-year-olds are unconscious on the side of the road, Tim decides he should drop them off at the hospital next to the university. Tim throws them in the back seat, unconscious, and literally puts them on the ground immediately in front of the doors of the hospital. Tim don't care. Tim goes to class and learns them kids learn good. TLDR. Tim's from Brooklyn. Don't frick with Tim. Note to self, be friends with Tim. Just your friendly neighborhood runner here. I admit I look a little, flamboyant sometimes in my summer running gear, and people insult me. Honestly, I could care less. One particular guy decided that insulting me wasn't enough and spit a nice fat logie in my face. Unfortunately for him, his several $100 Oakleys slipped off his face shortly thereafter. I knew their price because he immediately had a change of heart and began apologizing. After taunting him with them, I accidentally dropped them, and then accidentally proceeded to smash them with the weight of my foot and throw them into the closest trash receptacle. Oops. The worst thing I've ever had a stranger do to me was crash into my car when he was drunk. It was 3 PM on a January 1st, 2007, New Year's Day. The kid came around a corner way too fast, lost control and slammed into me head on. Luckily when I woke up I was able to walk away from the wreck. My father, unfortunately, who was the passenger in my car, broke his kneecap. The kid that hit me was all sorts of messed up. He had to go to the hospital ASAP. It was only later that I found out the butthole was drunk. So yeah, I would say that's the worst thing that has happened to me by a stranger. Still hate him. I feel your pain, Turbolix. Thankfully in my case it was ruled his fault. Only thing I got out of it besides no car for a month was medical bills covered. My first job at a MCD's. It was my responsibility to clean the restrooms. One day I walk into the men's room stall to sweep and I was greeted with the worst thing I have ever seen anyone do to a public restroom. How he managed to smear the crap on the ceiling I'll never know. The cherry on the sundae was the poopy pair of tighty whities left behind. By far the shittiest thing a stranger has, indirectly, done to me. I went to high school with a guy who did this sort of thing at the local MCDS. He was popular. I hated that guy and was happy to see him get ratted out by his friends. After a night on the town drinking with some friends, we caught the train back to station nearest to my friend's house and waited at the taxi rank with many others. Some fuckwit butthole and his ugly bee of a girlfriend, who looked pregnant, but may have just been fat, and was drunk, jumped in front of the queue. Everyone yelled at them to get to the back, but they said that they called ahead and booked this taxi. We called them out on their bulls and the taxi driver said that no one had booked anything. So then, these two just run and get in the taxi anyway, which just starts to drive off before anyone else could get to it and get them out. As they drive away, Mr. C winds down the window, sticks his finger up at everyone else waiting and says that's how I roll, thinking that he is some sort of cool guy. I have never wanted to beat the crap out of anyone more in my life. That's how I roll. Famous last words. I got punched in the face by some random dude. Me. WTF. Man. Him. Sorry. I thought you were someone else. Do you want to punch me back? I'll let you. Me. Number. I don't want to punch you. You're dong. Him. Can I buy you a beer? Me. Yeah, but stop punching people. Sucked, but I got a free beer. That guy was a dong. TL. DR. Don't punch people. That crap hurts. At least he said sorry and bought you a beer. Kind of a good guy dong. 3 stories tied for absurdity. Random hippie dude saw my wife and I together and called me a colonizer. He wasn't trying to be funny. He was actually being serious. I guess it serves me right for being in an interracial relationship. I was wearing a kippah, and a stranger told me to get back in the oven. I'm in a movie theater, and an old man sitting beside me touches my junk, unannounced. He thought he could just grab a hold of it. Worst part of it, I was too much of a coward to say anything. I have the worst luck sometimes. You should have beat the creep. When some person in San Diego stole my bag just after I'd interviewed Hulk Hogan. Camera, dictaphone, what an butthole. I know. Pics or it didn't happen, right? Sob. If only you colder got Hulk Hogan to beat the crap out of them. I'm deaf, so I have a weird voice but was never shy about using it until was 12 and got followed around an amusement park for several hours by a group of boys mimicking and laughing at me. My best friend, who could hear, was humiliated and decided we couldn't be best friends anymore. I'd say the best friend was the bigger butthole there. I didn't witness this firsthand, but on a cruise ship an older man walked up to my little sister and put his cigarette out on her hand. She was about 12 at the time. 100% my fault, but I was riding my bike down a hill, pulled the brake too hard and fell onto my nose, shattering it. A stone pierced my lip, destroying the gums on my lower jaw. Cuts all down my face on top of the handlebar, jabbing me on the stomach, causing internal bleeding. I was so scared I didn't know what had happened. There were a lot of people around who took no notice. Not one person asked if I was okay or came to help. I was screaming for help with blood pouring from my face. People equals crap. I forgot to say I had to cycle home in rush hour traffic for 15 minutes as my friends no longer ran off and left me. I had a buckled front wheel and twisted handlebars. People could clearly see something wasn't right. Roofied twice at 2 different bars. I no longer go to bars, no matter how much my friends or co-workers want me to or how antisocial that makes me. Debauched once. That is absolutely awful. I am so sorry. I lived in New Orleans. I was born in the 9th ward, and when my cousin and I were playing in the front yard, a car came and shot at us. At the time I was 7 and he was 12. He now has to use a breathing machine and take treatments every day, and because one bullet went through his spine, he has an immense amount of trouble walking. I was shot twice in the stomach and lost a fair amount of blood. TLDR. Some guys shot 2 kids playing in their front yard and fricked one up for life. This fall my high school cross country team and I were running down Main Street of town, and this kind of crappy car drives by and some white trash 20-something guy with bad tattoos and a whiff of beater yells at us frickin' F, followed by one of the quietest and smartest guys on the team just responds with yeah and 2 thumbs up. I guess he handled it pretty well. A random foreign man hit me in the face, knocking my glasses off. I understand people have different customs, but I really didn't enjoy his cultural form of greeting. I have a $50 video camera, record every mile I ride on my bicycle specifically for incidents like that, as is increasingly the trend with urban cyclists, and I'll never understand why car owners don't do the same. You have more to lose, and can be held liable for much more expensive accidents that are not your fault. If you're already spending thousands on a vehicle, that extra $50 can more than pay for itself in a split second you never see coming. I recommend everyone invest in one. It's the best possible insurance. 1 year ago, I returned to my parked car to find that the whole back had been destroyed. The mother just crashed my parked car, turned around and left. I never knew who it was. I had to pay $600 to get that crap fixed. But now I have a new car, so I am much better now. What an butthole. Some freaking degenerate, antisocial scumbag shot at me, my mom, and my sister. I was 5, my sister was 8. He and his buddies were robbing my neighbors at gunpoint in their house in the middle of the day. One of my neighbors made a run for it as we happened to be driving past. She stopped our car, got in, and one of the freaking shitbirds robbing her chased her out into the street and shot at us. A car with 2 women and 2 children, as my mom drove down the street in reverse. A few days ago, a guy called me a C for not giving him 50p. What peed me off is that I would have given it to him if I had any change. A bum in Nick once asked me for a cigarette. I told him sorry, but I only have one left. He then says, well, I'm only asking for one. I kindly tell him no because I don't have money for another pack. He then proceeds to call me an ungrateful little cocksucker and spits at my feet. What a dong. I've been randomly assaulted so many times I wouldn't know which one to pick. Probably the racial assault was the worst, just because I couldn't believe, at the time, that skin color was enough reason to have so much hate. I'll never forget the smiles on their faces as they converged on me, like beating me was going to be the highlight of their lives. Frick those guys. You're wonderful. I was in Girl Scouts when I was 11 and some girls actually pooled money and offered to pay me not to come on the day they were doing the group photo. They told me I was too ugly and they didn't want me ruining the picture. I took their money and never went back. Freaking buttholes. Should have taken the money and shown up with fake black eyes, missing teeth. I was out at a park with my girlfriend and I was wearing a Sex Pistols t-shirt. I got jumped by some kid who was trying to punch me in the face. His friends watched and laughed until he hit the ground and little butt kicking commenced. As his idiot friends dragged him away he yelled, "Sex Pistols suck. TL. DR. Got attacked by a stranger for wearing a Sex Pistols shirt. Never underestimate combat boots. Haha, the mental image of him being dragged away after getting his butt kicked and shouting Sex Pistols suck is too good. In Walmart, a guy walked up to me. He looked like an 18-year-old trying to look cool. I was 24 at the time. I'm in town visiting my mom, who I'm helping through the store because she has trouble walking without a basket to lean against. Anyway, this guy walks up and says, "Yo dog, where you got yo clothes?" I replied that my mom gets me all my clothes because I'm somewhat proud of the fact that my mom has good taste in clothing. Not good to Mr. White Gangster, who replies, "Yo, mom's got something wrong with her, bruh." I didn't slap him like I wanted to, instead I just walked away, but I was close. It's kind of a fail when a wannabe gangster is asking where you got your clothes in a Walmart. Well, we live in a rural area, and there are some sleazy, douchey people around where I live. My parents' trust in me was on a low, because they thought I was out doing drugs every weekend. The neighbor kid knew this. Turns out, he decided it was getting too risky to keep his weed in his own house, so he came and hid it in the shed by my house. I was out there, and I found it in a baby food jar. I brought it into the house and my parents freaked out and didn't let me explain. They then went into the shed and found a bunch of syringes and bottles of pills. I told them to ask the neighbor kid, and they did. He said, "It's not my fault that yo kid is a druggie. I am clean yo." And my parents sent me to therapy and a place called Beacon Light. It's kinda like rehab for minors. The neighbor kid wasn't questioned at all afterwards. You have been visited by the rare garlic doggo. If you subscribe to Updoot Reddit, you will have good luck for 69 years. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.